After blowing the first two games of the Eastern Conference Finals at home to the Pacers, the Knicks are facing a serious uphill battle if they want to win this series. But in Game 3, they took the first step that they had to make this happen by getting a win on Indiana's home floor. This was thanks to a huge uptick in their defense, particularly in the half court, but more importantly, a legacy fourth quarter performance out of Karl Anthony Towns. So, how did the Knicks manage to stay alive in this series? Let's talk about it. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. I was actually looking at it the other day. We're not that far from 140K subs, so if you're new here and you enjoy this video, join the Rusty Buckets family. Quick note before we get into the recap, Tom Thibodeau, he decided to mix it up quite a bit with his rotations in this one, and out of the gate, they started with Josh Hart off of the bench and Mitchell Robinson starting, going for that double bigs lineup, which is interesting because the lineup data on that has not been very good for this series, but they're trying to strike that offense-defense balance, and well, we'll see how it goes. With the switch up, Indiana finally decided to put Siakam on Karl Anthony Towns like I'd been asking for, which meant that Miles Turner got to spend a lot more time on defense around the rim. Both teams started the game poorly, each team hitting one of their first 5 shots, but Mitchell Robinson got the Knicks into it early with a pair of putback layups and a putback dunk, but after New York got an 11-6 lead, within 3 minutes, Indiana had taken the lead back, and this was in large part due to some perfect mismatch hunting. Great entry pass from Siakam to Miles Turner here, who has the mismatch on Brunson. He goes up quickly to avoid any help defense getting there on time. 6 of Indiana's first 10 points were as a direct result of a Jalen Brunson mismatch. Hart being subbed out for Cat was the first substitution, and at this point, it kind of feels like Cat is going to be the 5th most significant player in New York's rotation at this point, which feels absolutely insane. The trade-off from subbing Cat that you would think would be the defense and the rebounding, but that wasn't actually really the case early. The Knicks were so out of position on Miles on the offensive glass that they had to intentionally foul him on back-to-back possessions. He then would get a wide-open 3 on the wing as a result on their third shot opportunity, and he would nail it. And worse yet, Robinson around the rim meant that Miles Turner got to be around the rim, which allowed him to be a far more impactful defensive player overall. Miles gets a great contest at the rim here. This sparks a fast break where Tyrese finds Ben Shepherd in the corner on the break for a 3-pointer. This is the shot that gave Indiana their first lead after hitting back-to-back threes. But it wasn't just Miles. The Pacers also opted for Tony Bradley, which really confused me in Game 2, but I think I actually understand it this time around. Tony Bradley is far from a well-rounded big man, but he is pretty damn great at being a big body, rebounding well, and protecting the rim. He's the only Indiana Pacer besides for Miles who has any hope at all at remotely slowing him down on the glass and finishing at the basket. Now, the limitations that Mitchell has allows for someone like Bradley to even be in a rotation and play well in the first place, which is certainly a disadvantage that is worth considering as a strike against Robinson's value. The last thing to note for this quarter was DeLon Wright checking in. After that bullshit fourth quarter appearance from Cameron Payne in Game 2, I guess Tibbs is over that whole thing. I am perfectly okay with that. I am in favor. I'd rather watch DeLon Wright be bad than Cameron Payne be bad. As much as the momentum went Indiana's way at the end of the first, they were still within striking distance. Indiana leads 30-26. To start the second, there was a no Brunson lineup and McBride was in foul trouble, so they elected to run Landry Shamet alongside DeLon Wright, which is a choice for sure. After a scoreless first quarter, Cat had a pair of drives on back-to-back possessions to open the second. This one here especially displayed some impressive handling ability. However, those 2 buckets were all that Cat would get before, immediately going silent again. After that, he was called for an illegal screen, which got him his second foul, and then he got what appeared to be an and one dunk, but was reversed and turned into an offensive foul off of a Pacers challenge, challenge, meaning that Cat now had 3 fouls midway through the second. But it gets even worse. Not only was Cat in foul trouble, but Jalen Brunson was in major foul trouble. He got his second early into the second quarter, and Tibbs did not sub him out. Then Aaron Nesmith drove super hard into his chest and drew a foul for his third, and then Tibbs still didn't sub him out. And then finally, Jalen closed out super hard on a Nembhard corner 3 pump fake, and he got his 4th foul. But somehow even worse than that, before that 4th foul, Indiana had just gone on a massive scoring run. Though don't be mistaken, just because I'm saying scoring. It was mostly defense to offense. Look at how effective Indiana's full court press is here. On this possession, New York can't even get the ball inside the 3-point line till there's 6 seconds left on the shot clock. But they were also forcing turnovers and getting out in transition as a result. Here he picks it off and throws it behind his head to Obi Toppin, and there's nothing Josh Hart can do to interrupt that lob. This gives Indiana a 15-point lead, their biggest of the series so far. Then Hallie hit a 3 in semi-transition, got another steal, which was a carbon copy of the first one. This time it results in his own dunk on the other end, and the Pacers are starting to bury the Knicks at this point as they take a 20-point lead. But the Knicks did what they've done a lot in every quarter in this series, besides for the fourth, basically, and that is they closed strong. They're really good at ending quarters strong, and they got a really good stop on Indiana for their last possession of the half. Then on the other end, Bridges hit this corner 3 after bricking all night to that point, and the Knicks close on a 10-3 run, making it a 13-point deficit at half instead of 20. Cat at halftime has 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting, and he has played 4 less minutes than Mitchell Robinson. Indiana leads 58-45. The Knicks started the third quarter super strong. This step back 3 from OG to beat the shot clock rattles in and cuts the lead to 10. He actually hit another step back 3 just a few minutes later. However, Indiana would go on a pretty big run in response, mostly getting their buckets in transition. Hallie got the hockey assist to Nembhard, who found Nesmith trailing on the break for a 3-pointer, and they had 2 fast breaks in particular that they ran to perfection. This time it's Nembhard with the hockey assist off of a steal. Hallie does a no-look pass to Siakam running down the lane for the slam. And then less than 2 minutes later, the ball doesn't even touch the floor on this fast break. Shepard steals it, saves it to Nembhard, who does a touch pass to Hallie, who throws it up to Obi Toppin for the alley-oop slam. They were 16-0 in terms of fast break point differential versus New York after that dunk. And that's the game right there. That's the reason that Indiana was leading. One team is getting out in transition, and the other one is the Knicks. On top of that, TJ McConnell continued to cook from mid-range as he has been all series and had been all game. He hit his 5th of 7 attempts from mid-range in this one after getting the offensive rebound himself. But things didn't stay bleak. As I said, New York does tend to end quarters strong, and the spark plug this time for the Knicks was Deuce McBride. Here he hits a tough 3 pull-up off of the left elbow. After the possession before this, he had hit a beautiful mid-range baseline pull-up over McConnell. His 3 topped off a 7-0 run from the New York Knicks to cut the lead to 8, but Miles Turner would get a dunk and they wouldn't score again, so they trailed by 10 going into the fourth quarter. That is not a huge tide shift, but they managed to hold the Pacers to just 22 points in the quarter, and most of them were fast break opportunities in the half court. New York had kind of had them on lock for a while there. They aren't dead yet, however, Indiana is 6-0 when leading going into the fourth quarter in these playoffs. So, much has been made of their ability to make comebacks, but they also really aren't the type of team to allow comebacks to happen. So they lead 80-70, but forget all that bullshit that I was saying, because that's apparently exactly what the Pacers do, because that's exactly what happened. Though I will give Indiana this pass. This was a due to truly miraculous play from Karl Anthony Towns. After getting benched in game 2 and playing like ass for the first 3 quarters of this game, KAT's reputation was heavily on the line. He's already been catching a ton of flack for how this series has gone, and rightfully so, but he responded by having a legacy fourth quarter performance. Josh Hart was also very impactful with his rebounding. He started this whole run for KAT by getting an offensive rebound and finding him for his first three-pointer of the game. KAT even displayed great patience and playmaking on a 5v4 in semi-transition, getting it to DeLon Wright for the open layup. But then he started really cooking Miles Turner. Here he attacks Miles off the dribble in semi-transition, gets an and one, and cuts Indiana's lead to just 3. Then he hit another three-pointer, this one with the quick trigger at the top of the key. He had 12 points in the fourth, already just 3.5 minutes into it, but he also gave him that work off of the ball. Losing Miles this time with the cut from the top of the key, Bridges finds him with the pass out of the double. This time it's a slam for yet another and one. This run not only gave New York the lead, but it also allowed them to rest 3 out of their 5 starters. Bridges, OG, and Brunson checked in with 7 minutes left with fresh legs, which is a luxury that this Knicks team seldom has access to. Brunson and KAT both got their 5th foul pretty early into checking into these quarters, but they managed to avoid getting the 6th the rest of the way. But Towns did chill out a little bit offensively after Brunson came in, but he ended this run with a wild shot. KAT off of a McBride screen, inverted pick and roll at that, with the off the dribble 3. The contest from Siakam is just a little too late, but wow, what a ballsy ass shot from KAT here. The only thing that was keeping Indiana afloat through all of this was the mid-range shooting from Pascal Siakam. He hit 3 of them from basically the same damn spot in this fourth quarter, including an and one over a double team. But the game ended up being tied up 98 apiece with 90 seconds left with the ball in New York's hands, and though he has not scored it well at all, who else for New York would hit this shot besides for Jalen Brunson with his first bucket, I think his only bucket of this fourth quarter, a simple floater to take a 2-point lead. Clutch as always from him. I mean, it was defended pretty well, but that's Jalen Brunson. He hits that shot all day, every day. New York would lock up on defense the next possession, resulting in a difficult Miles Turner 3, and he's kind of been missing all second half while getting cooked by KAT in this fourth quarter, so not a very strong end for him. Worse yet, Josh Hart would get fouled off of a difficult rebound, and he hit both of his free throws. The Pacers were kind of bailed out by a ghost foul on Halliburton. He ended up getting 2 free throws out of it. Not a 3, but it does bail them out of a dying possession, and it gives the Knicks a chance to make a mistake. However, they would not do that, and I think the number they said was 16. Maybe it was 16 before Hart hit 2 more, but I think 16 or 18 straight makes from the free throw line for New York. I think they only missed 3 out of their 30 or 33 attempts. Either way, like, I think 90% shooting from the line. Huge stuff, because that is the exact type of thing that is something that is entirely in your control, but you also can completely fumble, and they needed to be good at the things that they can control. Brunson would get fouled on the inbound, and the Knicks defended again the possession perfectly, preventing the Pacers from getting a clean look. This time it was a bad 3 from Siakam, and Hart again grabs a rebound, gets fouled, and hits the free throw. So New York keeps the series alive with the victory in Indiana, 106-100. Let's start with some notes for the New York Knicks. Wow, did this not look good. When Indiana got it back to a 16-point lead midway through the third, I honestly thought that the Knicks were cooked. I thought that was it for them, especially after that lob from Obi Toppin. Man, I just thought, yeah, you're not going to stop him in transition, and even if your defense in the half court has picked up, that's nice, but it's not good enough. But they also stopped turning the ball over late, and less transition opportunities were available, so the Pacers relied on the half court offense more and more, but they just weren't getting anything out of it. They still probably were cooked, though, even with the defense turning up, if not for just an absolute hero ball performance out of Karl Anthony Towns. You know, I like to talk about how much stars just are not able to control the result of the the game the same way that they used to back in the day. And it is still true that a star player cannot simply carry you throughout a series. However, they can carry you to a win, and that win can open the door towards you getting more wins. He was still terrible for 3/4 of the game, and he deserves flack for that, but it's hard to focus on that given the context and given that they were almost just dead. Their season was almost just dead. Tibbs had an interesting rotation change for this one. Obviously, we talked about the starters being switched. I don't hate DeLon Wright playing. I honestly think that's fine if the alternative is Cameron Payne, but I do hate Landry Shamet playing. That said, I think he had like one of the best plus minuses of the team in his minutes. He also hit a corner three. He played pretty good defense for the fact that he's Landry Shamet, so can't knock it too much. And having those guys be able to check in, dudes who have been non-factors in this series, be able to check in and each of them give you respectable 10-ish minutes apiece, that is a huge luxury. God damn, stop fucking up. That is a huge luxury and something that they needed with Cat and Brunson both being in foul trouble. Even with that foul situation, at no point was there a Brunson and Cat both on the bench lineup, which I think we saw in both of the first two games in the series, which was absolutely baffling to me. But no, one of Cat or Brunson were on the floor at all times. Mitchell Robinson was far less effective in this one, so he played less minutes in the second half. As I had mentioned with that first half analysis, like Miles Turner being able to hover around the rim is making Indiana's defense substantially better, and Mitchell Robinson allowed that even if, you know, he can get a few more offensive rebounds. Overall, Cat spacing helped their offense. It was more of a defensive trade-off, but it just made both teams' defenses stronger when Robinson checked into the game, and making it more defensive focused is in favor of the Knicks. However, it is also a big reason why they were down in that first half. The defense in the half court is what really picked up in the second half. They allowed just 22 points overall in the third and 20 in the fourth quarter. Once again, they were blessed by a Cat run without Brunson on the floor. They got that in game one. I think game one is when they got that huge fourth quarter lead, was because Cat just popped off with Brunson on the floor. This time, though, they were actually able to capitalize on such a luxury. But speaking of, Brunson actually played kind of bad in this one. He went 10 for 10 from the line, but he shot 6 for 18 from the field, getting him to 23 points. Not ideal, and certainly well below his standard and the standard he set in the first two games in this series. This is a pretty good OG game, which means we got a terrible Bridges game. No shocker there. They can't be good at the same time. That's impossible. Deuce McBride provided a boost at the end of the third quarter, which enabled this run to happen in the first place. Some very big shots from him, difficult contested pull-up shots from him that truly, most likely don't go in. This time around, they go in, and that was the spark plug that was the catalyst of all of this, and I think that's going to get lost in the story of this game. But seriously, please, please, please give the credit to Deuce McBride, because he wasn't able to play a bunch of the game because of early foul trouble. He made an immediate impact as soon as Tibbs felt comfortable playing him again. Josh Hart had me hating on him in the first half. Once again, I wrote down like, man, I think I'm out on Josh Hart. He keeps doing something to make me think he kind of sucks, and then he keeps doing something I'm like, no, he doesn't suck. He's actually pretty damn good at times. But like, he wasn't doing jack nor shit in the first half. He had a huge negative net rating, the spacing negative that he brings to the team. Like, as much as little things are good and important, big things also matter, and the big thing of being able to space the floor as a wing doesn't have that going for him. However, a lot of really strong defensive plays and especially some massive rebounds late in this one, so can't give him flack. He was a big reason they closed this game strong on the defensive end. They also had just 13 assists on 34 field goals, so the offense truly was carried by Brunson and Cat scoring off of isolation, but it did work, so you can't get too mad at it. Now, what are their odds of winning game 4? Well, to be honest, having a bad Cat game for most of the game and a bad Brunson game, surviving that has to make you feel pretty good. That's super commendable. It's not like you just got 40 pieces out of both of those guys, so you're like, yeah, that's great, but are you really going to do that again? No, that was you. 2 stars bad most of the game, and one of them only good for the fourth quarter. Granted, 20 points is really fucking good for the fourth quarter, but even all of that context together, I'm just saying, They didn't have the most ideal game here, and they still came out with the W. Though I will say Halliburton and Siakam also were bad in this game, so it's not like one team's stars showed up and the others didn't. Both teams' stars kind of were so-so for most of the game. Hard to tell yourself that Indiana is going to shoot this poorly again. They went 5 for 25 from outside. That one's definitely a stretch. I think that was in large part because of improved defense. I'm not going to do the, oh, they just simply missed threes thing, but there were a good amount of threes in this game that they can definitely hit. And I'd say that they have a real chance. I just personally doubt that they're going to capitalize on it. I still think there's so many major inconsistencies with this team. And inconsistency means that there are upswings. It means that there are games where things go well. And I expected the Knicks to win this one. I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, but you know, I'm saying that damn near every time now. I said that about game 3 for Thunder Timberwolves. The Knicks are a better away team in this postseason. I think they have a better away record than home record. So that does help. That does help their chances rather substantially. Now, I have less notes on the Indiana Pacers. It's hard to win a game where Hallie and Siakam are this bad scoring the ball. Miles Turner had it going offensively in the first half, but he completely lost it in the second. And I think Tibbs realized that that extra big on the floor meant that Miles Turner was no longer being pulled away from the basket. It meant that there was a serious rim protection presence where there otherwise wouldn't be. So once he got Cat out there more in the second half, Miles was getting burned on the perimeter over and over and over again, either by Cat's threes or by his drives or by that one back cut I showed you. They need to stop putting Miles Turner on Cat because his best moments in this series have been on Miles Turner because Miles is just not that comfortable on the perimeter. He's cool, but that's not really where you want him. And he's slower than Cat on the drive, and he's not as willing to stick out on the perimeter, especially super far out like he's supposed to. So let someone else, Pascal Siakam, guard Karl Anthony Towns. I talked about this going into the series, that you have the option to use Miles Turner as a free safety off of Josh Hart, as the freelance dude who just does whatever he wants on defense, more or less, hovers around the basket, prevents easy opportunities at the rim. We have seen this strategy employed time and time and time again, and it's a really effective one. But for some reason, Rick Carlisle has decided that Andrew Nembhard should be the free safety defensive player, despite the fact that he doesn't have exploitable weaknesses on the perimeter. I don't get this at all. I was willing to let it slide after the first 2 games because obviously they won them, but I think that has been a huge negative in this series, very glaringly and obviously so, especially after this fourth quarter. So they need to adjust it. Miles Turner can't guard Cat. He just can't. He is one of those guys who is really good in one context on defense and really bad in another. And the Pacers seem to be wholly unaware or wholly unwilling to do anything about the fact that he is almost always, especially when Cat's in the game, finding himself in a negative position defensively, somewhere where he's going to be a net negative on that end. And then if his shot's not dropping, which it wasn't in this one, then he's going to be a net negative overall as well. Like, he was truly a huge hindrance for them, but I think that could be largely avoided by simply changing the matchup. Pascal guarded Cat when the double big lineups were in, and Mitchell Robinson in there. Miles Turner was able to hover around the basket. The Pacers defense was so much better because of that. And you can still do that without Mitchell Robinson in the game, because you don't have to defend Mitchell on the perimeter, and you also don't have to defend Josh Hart on the perimeter. I think this is a pretty obvious solution, all things considered, and I really think fixing that would do a lot. My camera died, but I'm at the very end of this video, so I'm just going to read the rest of it. I don't care. Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard combined for 4 of 17 shooting. That is far from ideal. Nesmith rolled his ankle. I don't know if he returned, but if he did, he wasn't very good. TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin were both great. In fact, Obi had a plus 19, which was the next best plus minus for them after Ben Shepherd, who had a +1. Subbing him out of the game and going with Miles Turner is kind of what killed them at the very end there. I understand the Ben Shepherd and Bradley minutes a whole lot more than I did in game 2. They went pretty well here. Benedict Mathurin continues to stink it up in this series. I honestly don't think that he should be in the rotation. They also just hit 5 of their 25 three-point attempts, which is a next level uncharacteristic for them. Although you got to commend New York for chasing them off of the line so much, because 25 three-point attempts is really, really low in the modern NBA. Now, how worried should they be about blowing this series? I'm going to go like a 2 out of 10. How worried should they be about this series being prolonged when they previously had a strong chance of closing it out in 4 or 5? I mean, I'm going to say probably a 6 out of 10. I think the Knicks could win another game in this series, and of course they could still win it because, as I like to say, anything's possible and predictions are meaningless. I think New York's defense has stepped up a ton, but Indiana also missed shots that they're going to hit more often than not. They're not the type of team to stay cold over a prolonged stretch of games like the Boston Celtics were. I just don't know that you can bank on that in the same way that you did previously. Yeah, the Pacers, they can make a couple of small adjustments, and I think they're going to be fine. But they better make those adjustments because they have shown a lot of their weakness in this one. But yeah, that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.